All right, everyone, let's get started. Thank you for joining us today and taking some time out of your busy days. And joining us for our next 15 minutes of Beeswax, an introduction to connected TV. We're going to try to keep this as high level as possible. And of course, save some time for Q&A at the very end. So without further ado, who am I? My name's Albert. I'm part of the product marketing team here at Beeswax, now a Freewheel company. And joining me today is Kia Wilbur, one of our senior customer success managers. So before we dive into the meat of things, let's quickly talk about what we will be covering today. First item we'll be covering is what are CTV and OTT, what's the difference between the two. We'll also talk about what to expect when buying on CTV and OTT, and finally close with a little bit of what buying with CTV and OTT with Beeswax is like before sliding into some Q&A. So what are CTV and OTT? The fact is they're frequently used interchangeably, and that's okay, but there is some nuance that needs to be understood between the two first. And something to understand to begin with is what many refer to as connected TV is really just a subset of over-the-top video delivery, or OTT. So what is OTT? OTT is really just video streamed over the internet to a connected device. So it could be a CTV, but it could just as easily be a phone or a laptop. So if you're watching Netflix on your phone, Hulu on your laptop, and Zumo on your CTV, that's all still OTT. Whereas CTV is just TVs with integrated internet connections. So for example, smart TVs. However, again, there's a little bit more nuance here. And if your campaign's goal is really to serve an ad on the living room TV, this sort of nuance becomes more and more important because CTVs aren't the only connected devices that people use to stream onto the big screens. To make the most of a CTV campaign, you really should be targeting the following devices. Not just CTVs, but also set-top boxes, game consoles, and connected devices. All of these are frequently connected to the living room TV, or at the very least, a screen that's larger than your average phone or laptop. So for the sake of simplicity, when I say CTV going forward, what I really mean is CTVs, set-top boxes, game consoles, and connected devices. So now that we've established a baseline, let's quickly talk about what you can expect when you are buying on CTV. A lot of people that I met in the past go in thinking that CTV is really just another offshoot of online video, but that can be misleading. Yes, they are both video, but CTV can be a very different animal for several reasons, and it's really worth digging into and working out those differences to set yourself up for success. So let's start with the very basics of targeting and how you reach your target audience. Arguably, deal IDs, which have been gaining a lot of traction in the recent years, are more important than ever on CTV. And there are a lot of reasons for this, but the biggest reason is really the fact that audience addressability varies heavily on CTV, and it varies heavily depending on the content providers. And this is because cookies don't exist on CTV. They're going away everywhere else, but they never existed on CTV to begin with. As a result, private deals make a huge difference. Really, for best results on CTV, you do want to maintain at least some relationships with either device manufacturers such as Roku or Samsung, or the publishers or content owners, because they're the ones that have the most visibility into what sort of inventory is available. And they can also provide data that other members of the ecosystem don't have access to because it's not their data. So when thinking about buying on CTV, always make sure to consult directly with the exchanges that you work with or intend to work with to understand what sort of deal IDs that they maintain. Because again, deal IDs are make a huge difference on CTV. Other than that, your standard targeting options that you would normally see on online video are typically still available, but just typically tied to either a device or synthetic ID or IP address. So for example, items like DMA or country geo-targeting still available because it's based off of IP. First and third party data are still options. You can still onboard data and make that targetable in CTV with the help of partners such as LiveRamp or Tapad. And also we're starting to see a rise in third-party data partners specialized in CTV, such as companies like TrueOptic. In addition, You can still, of course, target by inventory source. You can create your allow lists or block lists and choose which apps that you want to target on. But something I do want to take a little bit of a moment to talk about are the pre-bid segments. Pre-bid segments help filter fraud and invalid traffic. And with the explosive growth that CTV has seen in the last few years, well, where the money goes, the bad actors follow. So pre-bid segments are typically a pretty good idea. That said, an alternative to using these pre-bid segments is really, again, running on private marketplace for guaranteed deals. So you have that extra layer of peace of mind as well as brand safety baked in. Of course, also device type, IP address, pre-roll and mid-roll targeting are all also available just for device type. Maybe don't target the phone like the image that we have right now and target all the devices that we just spoke to. So that is targeting. Next, let's quickly talk about optimization. Similar to online video, commonly the KPIs that we will see are going to be video completion rate or cost per completed view with an added layer of making sure to keep reach and frequency in mind. I want to take a quick side note to note that it is possible to actually optimize to site visits. That said, site visits typically require a separate measurement partner that is able to link impressions from the TV to the web. However, one notable difference between CTV and standard online video is the concept of viewability. On online video, viewability is pretty important. It's likely a more expensive ad unit. You want people to see it, but it's not really something that a lot of people buying on CTV necessarily worry about. The nature of the channel itself just makes it highly viewable. It's different from linear or your regularly scheduled cable programming, where folks are frequently tempted to channel surf. When people are watching CTV, it tends to be a little bit more intentional, and we found that they are more likely to sit through the ad. I forgot to mention, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature in the, I believe, lower right-hand corner, and we'll get to those right at the end of the presentation. So sorry, as I was saying, CTV tends to be a little bit more viewable. But also, it's not like people who are watching on CTV have anything to scroll to. So they might be looking at their phones, though, which means running a companion campaign to CTV buys is usually a pretty good idea. Next, let's segue and quickly talk about some of the creative requirements that we see on CTV. One of the big ones to keep in mind is that many CTV devices do not support VPAID or MRAID. In other words, rich media on CTV is not really a thing yet. However, also worth noting that a lot of US consumers are not really used to interacting with their TVs in ways that we've seen in rich media in the past. So both the audience as well as the technology are still in development, at least in the US market. Additionally, with regard to format, having a high quality video created is really more important than ever, especially considering the fact that people will be seeing these impressions on screens that are probably 5 times larger than their standard laptop screens. So any lowered quality becomes really, really apparent on CTV and really detracts away from the user experience. So definitely make sure your video assets are as high quality as possible. Some providers even require HD video. The one that's most notable for this is Hulu. In addition to 15 to 30-second non-skippable ad units, let's also talk quickly about impression delays. If you're not familiar with impression delays, it's really when there's just a gap between the time of the bid request or the bid response and the time the impression was actually delivered. And this happens in online video, but it is especially commonplace in CTV. And there are a lot of reasons for that, but the biggest reason is that frequently the publisher will send out bid requests at the start of a user's viewing session and only deliver the ad once they reach that commercial break. And the reason for that is because it improves the user experience. If you wait until the commercial break itself to call for the ad, that generally creates latency and ruins the user experience on CTV. So to create that smooth, linear-like viewing experience, they usually call for those ads ahead of time. And that's kind of why you'll see the impression delays. So if that's something you encounter in the middle of your reporting, that is totally to be expected and nothing to be concerned about. So now that we've talked about targeting, optimization, and creative, let's talk about pricing. I want to be clear that this is just a very loose generalization based off of what we've seen in the past. So prices do vary by publisher and by company. So frequently we've heard of a lot of our clients are actually getting better deals than this. So make sure to keep in mind that when you're negotiating pricing for CTV deals, do bring the best from your BD team to the table, and odds are pretty good you might be able to get lower prices than what you see here. So that's CTV in a nutshell. Let's talk about buying CTV with Beeswax. Of course, in addition to the standard integrations with the top suppliers, as well as content and distribution providers, there's a lot about Beeswax and specifically the BaaS bidder as a service business model that really helps our customers get the most out of CTV. Starting with custom supply filtering. So this is something that we really pride ourselves at Beeswax about. And really what this is about is a lot of exchanges provide DSPs with a decent amount of control over what sort of inventory we receive from those exchanges. And in turn, Beeswax is actually able to provide those same capabilities to our BaaS clients. So if you are buying with certain exchanges that specialize in CTV and provide a lot of controls to Beeswax, what we can really do is maximize the amount of CTV inventory that you receive, giving you more opportunities to bid, giving you more opportunities to win. So another aspect that Beeswax is able to provide is greater data transparency than a lot of other companies on the market. So especially with regard to log level data, and then making it easy to use and activate via tools like Antenna. So with that in mind, you can use log level data to really kind of inspect the universe of bids that you're receiving, really identify the variables that are most indicative of performance, and optimize accordingly. Furthermore, we have tools like delivery models that help maximize delivery. If you're not familiar with delivery models from Beeswax, what they really are a way to dynamically shift budget from one line item to another. So for example, if you have 50% of your budget in private marketplaces, 50% in open marketplace, but the private marketplace is underspending a little bit just because inventory happens to be a little scarce, we can shift that budget over to the open marketplace to ensure that your campaign delivers in full. In addition to our delivery controls, of course, we are cross-device enabled, work with all the top identity providers such as LiveRamp as well as TapAd to facilitate campaigns across all streams and all screens. But also arguably one of the biggest differentiators for Beeswax as it relates to CTV is our SaaS pricing model. Many DSPs frequently charge based off of a percentage of spend, which means when your inventory is more expensive, such as the case is with CTV, you can really save a lot of money with SaaS pricing where every bid request is treated as the same price. So to us, a CTV, like a $50 CPM CTV impression is basically the same as a below the fold medium rectangle on mobile web. And also finally, of course, we do have bid shading. So with Beeswax, you are able to save more with bid shading in the sense that we do provide a little bit of extra control compared to other solutions that we've seen on the market. So you can set our bid shading model to bid more or less aggressively. So when you bid more aggressively, the algorithm tries to save you more money by bidding a little bit lower. And again, that's super helpful when you're buying on premium inventory like CTV. But also, you can bid less aggressively if you need to prioritize delivery and maintain those win rates. So again, a huge and very helpful tool when it comes to CTV inventory. So that's how Beeswax helps. But in addition to just what we do, we also have plenty of advanced CTV measurement partners to help fulfill any advanced analytic needs that you might have or desire. So when it comes to campaign measurement, as well as brand lift, sales lift, and foot traffic, we definitely have a lot of partners that we work with that we can work with to help enable your advanced measurement goals. Finally, do want to close by saying, of course, now as part of Freewheel, we have just integrated with Freewheel Programmatic Guaranteed just earlier this month, and we will be able to help our clients enable gain access to some of the world's most respected media companies. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely reach out to your Beeswax account team today. So that's all I've got for y'all. Let's dive into some Q&A now. So starting with the first question, we've got one question that asks, do inventory numbers get inflated due to impression delays? Kyo, do you have any insight here?
So I would say that inventory numbers, as far as I know, aren't inflated due to impression delays. And if I'm understanding this question correctly, so what that would show on the SSP or publisher side is just a low translation rate. So what that means is the SSP or publisher will see wins, for example, but no impressions, and then that would be delivered to us. And in that case, like on the buyer side, we're seeing delayed impressions, but they might let us know to help, I guess, work with our buyers to maybe change the creative, or yeah, we also have on the Beeswax side a window of time where we will cut off that, I guess, ability to receive a delayed impression. So I think in that sense, like we wouldn't necessarily inflate the impression numbers because we do have a cutoff time. And then we also work with SSPs and publishers to get a flag for any low translation rates.
Fantastic. Hopefully that answered your question. If it didn't, please feel free to follow up. I've got one question here. Do I prefer baked chicken or fried chicken? And definitely fried. Thank you for that question. But the next question is, how do you measure an ad on CTV, for example, from CTV to web, aside from specific promo codes? Kyo, is this something that you can answer?
Yeah, so measurement on CTV, it's still, I guess, relatively, it's less clear across all partners and in the industry, but there are a few ways, such as VCR. So that is a strategy that a lot of customers use just to measure viewability throughout the ad, which is typically high, given referencing some of what Albert referenced. CTV is like intentional and usually viewed just, yeah, high impact. And then the other forms that I've seen can be related to some of the third-party vendors that Albert mentioned as well. So there's different ways to measure attribution through those vendors. We also have some cross-device vendors that we work with that can help to map back CTV impressions to, yeah, I guess, attribution metrics on other platforms and devices. So there's a number of ways. It's not as clear cut yet, but I think probably a lot of the third-party vendors would be more involved in helping with measurement.
Fantastic. And there was a follow-up question here. What metrics and measurements are important for CTV? You mentioned VCR, but is there anything else that you would also highlight?
Yeah, I think VCR is probably the most prominent with CTV, and I will let you know and follow up here if I can think of anything else.
Great. And so just to reiterate, VCR is video completion rate, and also cost per completed view is also something that we typically see a lot on CTV as well. Next question, how does cross-device work with retargeting? If we see a skip on one device, can we retarget through another based on that skip?
So yeah, we might have to get back to you on this one, but I would say, I guess with cross-device, we do work with, for example, LiveRamp, who also logs their IDL. And basically when they see a CTV ID and they can link it to another, I guess, device, we have that mapping, and LiveRamp also has that mapping, for example, that we can refer to understand where that user's been, which can help with retargeting on other devices. So yeah, in terms of the second question, we have to get back to you on that one.
Great. If you want to reach out to us at bass@beeswax.com, we are happy to look into this for you and respond accordingly. So thank you for that. Next question is, how would you suggest tying performance, e.g. behavior on an advertiser site, to impression level log data for CTV? Any ideas there, Kyo?
So I would say this would also relate to the third-party vendors in the sense where you'd have to tie back that site impression to a user, and then from there tie that user to a CTV ID. So I would, again, kind of punt this to the third-party vendors that we work with, rely on their mapping systems for CTV IDs to website IDs like cookies, and really leverage their measurement there.
Fantastic. Next question is, are you able to use program level information to target bidding? And I can take this one. So we are working with Comcast actually, and we will be one of the first to get some Comcast modeled data into our UI. So that's coming later this year. And once we have that data, we will be able to target based off of, sorry if you could hear that, that was my doorbell, but we are able to use program level information such as the shows watched, genres watched, and brands exposed to target. So that is coming down the pipeline, and that is something that we will be providing eventually, but also there are other data providers as well as multi-channel video platform distributors that can make their data available to facilitate that program level information for bidding. Next question is, how do impression delays impact pacing? Kyo?
Impression delays impacting pacing. So I would say that generally this isn't an issue given that we're still seeing the impression it just coming in late. And again, we do have a cutoff window on the Beeswax end for up until X window of time that we can receive these impressions. So I would say generally we do see like delivery and it may just happen, or you may just see delivery like maybe a day later than I guess your intended window. But I would say it's generally not going to impact our pacing too much, given that cutoff.
Fantastic. Next question is there bid stream information available like there is on the display side?
Yes, there is. So you can see everything basically that you would see on other, like on a display inventory bid request. I guess the difference is the type of user ID that you're seeing.
Fantastic. Next question is, what third-party cross-device vendors work with Beeswax? To me, it's LiveRamp and TapAd. Kyo, have you worked with any others in the past?
Yeah, I would say LiveRamp and TapAd are the ones that we're currently integrated with. Yep.
Fantastic. Another question is whether all the CTV info provided in this webinar also applies to OTT. I would argue that actually it kind of depends, depending on how some of the content owners set up their CTV as well, CTV environments versus their desktop or mobile environments. So, for example, if I'm watching something on the mobile site as opposed to the mobile app, some things might be a little bit different. So, something to keep in mind that there is a little bit of nuance there, and something to do some due diligence on as you're executing. Kyo, is there anything else you want to add to that?
No, yeah, I would say that covers it.
Fantastic. Next question is, what about measurement within the same device? For example, running an ad for a CTV app to be installed on the same CTV device. How can that be measured?
That is a good question. We will get back to you on that one.
Fantastic. I think we have your name, so we will try to respond as soon as possible when we've got that. Next question is, who is the target customer for our product? Is it meant for advertisers to run their own CTV or agencies to run campaigns for lots of different advertisers? Great question. Beeswax is suited for all customers of all types, whether you're an agency, whether you're a marketer that's in-housing, or whether you're a consulting firm that's trying to set up your own bidder. We can definitely support any of those needs and can execute against any campaigns that you are looking for. Next question is that knowing kids are driving so many family purchase decisions and are also spending a lot of time on CTV and OTT, how can we reach this valuable information, or excuse me, reach this valuable audience without infringing on their digital privacy? Kyo, do you have anything to say about that, read COPPA or anything like that?
Yeah, so Beeswax is fully COPPA compliant, so I think that we don't, I guess generally, like we don't target or have audiences that target this age group. But with that said, that you can do household level IP targeting probably with the hope that you're targeting an audience that is, I guess, like you're targeting that audience at the household level. So that is a possibility within CTV. and also through our third-party vendors.
Fantastic. Those are all of the questions that I've seen so far. If you've got any, try to slide right in. But other than that, I will say thank you for joining us today, and thanks again to Kyo as well for joining us as well. And have a wonderful day. I hope you all learned something today.